Is Halloween Kills about to be delayed again? How's it going, guys? As always, my name is Jimmy Champane, and if you like monsters, slashers, pretty much any movie shot during, set during, or inspired by the 1980s, this is the channel for you. So because of all the movies that were delayed out of 2020, October of this year is looking to be one of the biggest and most packed months of movies ever. Like, this is gonna be an absolute bloodbath at the box office. You've got stuff like Many Saints in Newark, you've got No Time to Die, of course you have Halloween Kills, and on top of that we have Dune and Last Night in Soho, and I'm sure there's a ton of indie movies coming out during the month that I'm gonna watch, but no one else will. But despite the fact that there's so many movies coming out in October, there's been one that's had a release date for a really long time that hasn't faced any real competition, other than having movies coming out the week before it and after it, of course, and that is Halloween Kills. But then Sony decided to shake things up when they moved Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage to October 15th. And I gotta check my math, but I think that's either the 500th or 600th time that Sony has delayed Venom. Like, this is getting crazy. Of course, as soon as this happened, I got a ton of tweets from people asking whether or not I feel like A, Halloween Kills has to be worried, or B, it should move its date once again. And to all those people, I immediately said no, it should not move its date, and it definitely shouldn't be worried. And I got a lot of pushback on this one, but there's a lot of reasons that I think justify my response. The first thing we have to talk about is budget. So looking at Halloween Kills, the budget is probably somewhere around $20 million, which means to break even, it has to make around $40 to $50 million, and then $60 million to be considered profitable. Venom 2, on the other hand, we don't know its budget, but just looking at the budget of the first movie, I don't think it's going to get any more, and it probably isn't getting less, so we'll just say it's going to cost over $100 million to make, which means it has to make $300 million just to break even. And when you look at the landscape right now and how many people are going to theaters, it's a lot easier to make a profit on a movie that costs $20 million versus one that cost over $100 million, and we've seen that happen over and over again, especially with Mortal Kombat, which is weirdly like Warner Brothers' biggest movie of 2021 just in terms of profits. Like, they put it on HBO Max, it was available for free, but it made an insane amount of money at the box office. And Mortal Kombat had a very similar budget to what we think Halloween Kills has, which is a good sign for Halloween. But I think it's fair to say that despite the fact Venom made a lot of money, the general consensus is that it wasn't a very good Venom movie, mainly because it wasn't rated R, even though it was initially intended to be rated R, just like Deadpool. And on top of that, it didn't have Spider-Man in it. And a lot of people who went to see that movie just assumed that Spider-Man would be in it, you know, like general moviegoers. And now they know that Sony can't use Spider-Man in their movies unless they want to ruin their relationship with Marvel. It's a very like testy waters situation. So not only is Venom 2 a very expensive movie that needs to make a lot more at the box office than movies have been making lately, it also is a movie that's a sequel to a movie that had a very poor critical reception, which is never good. We're seeing that right now with The Suicide Squad. It's a sequel to a movie that had a poor critical reception but actually made a lot of money and had a lot of its own fans, right? But then the second one comes out, gets a ton of good reviews, has a great audience score, and then it fails to make a lot of money. Halloween Kills, on the other hand, couldn't be in a more different situation than Venom 2. First of all, it had a great critical reception. It's certified fresh at 79% right now. It has a 70% from audiences, which is really good. And I'm not one of those people who thinks it's perfect, right? I really liked it. I thought it was a great follow-up to the original movie. I thought it was a great way to bring Michael Myers back. But just recently, on the last Hallowstream Kills we did, all of us Halloween YouTubers, we all talked about things we didn't like about it, and we all had plenty of things to say. But for the most part, Halloween had a great reception, a lot of people liked it, and then there's a very, very small and very, very vocal group of people who didn't like it, and they need you so badly to know about it. So unlike Venom 2, Halloween Kills has to make a lot less money to be considered a success, and it's coming off of great critical reception, and it has a ton of hype. And another big reason for that is Universal and Blumhouse haven't moved this movie around all over the place. It was supposed to come out last October, and then they pushed it forward pretty much exactly a year, and that's the only delay Halloween Kills has had. Whereas again with Venom, that movie's been delayed honestly probably like 5 or 6 times at this point. And this is purely anecdotal, but if you look at all of the tweets that announced Venom 2's delay, a lot of the replies, like the vast majority of the replies, are people saying that they're going to see Halloween Kills instead. So when you look at Halloween Kills, which had a budget that's a fraction of the size of Venom 2's, and then you look at the fact that it's coming off of a movie that had great critical and and fan reception, and when you consider how much confidence Universal and Blumhouse have put behind it, especially with the marketing, which has been incredible so far, I don't think we have all that much to be concerned about with Halloween Kills. And one of the big arguments I saw is that Halloween Kills needs to make as much money, if not more, than Halloween 2018 to be considered a success, to the point where they would make Halloween Ends. First of all, I think Halloween Ends is set in stone either way, any way you slice it. They're filming it in January. That's been confirmed by James Jude Courtney, like that is going to happen. And secondly, this should go without saying, but Universal has definitely altered their expectations on what a movie has to earn at this point. In a normal world, I feel like it's more than fair to assume that Halloween Kills would have done as well or outperformed Halloween 2018 if it got as good reviews, if not better. But things aren't normal right now, and Universal definitely knows that after putting out many movies this year and having a lot of stuff to figure out. So I feel like it's going to be just fine if Halloween Kills manages to pull in like $100 to $150 million. That's going to be a big success for this movie. And I've hammered the point home many times that Universal has a deal with AMC and Regal and all of the big theater chains right now, which says they can put their movies up for PVOD 17 days after they've been in theaters. So that lines up pretty well with having Halloween Kills come out on October 15th and then also be available to rent or purchase on October 31st. Like, that might not be perfectly within the 17-day window, but I feel like Universal has a pretty good bargaining chip here, so I think that's going to be the case. I'm like crossing my fingers on it, but I'm fairly confident. And this next story should also provide more reassurance, but Fangoria, when they relaunched back in 2018, their first issue had Michael Myers on it, and they did incredible coverage of that movie. It was really cool reading through all those articles, and I was hoping that they would do it again with Halloween Kills, and they've already revealed their cover for this Halloween's issue, and yes, it has Michael Myers all over it. He looks incredible. It's almost a full shot of Michael holding the bloody butcher knife, and he's also covered in blood, and there's blood splatter all over the cover. It looks incredible. Again, I know I already said that, but I'm really excited for it. I think they're gonna have some great coverage just like they did last time around. And Jason Blum posted the cover on his Instagram and said the movie's coming out October 15th. So Halloween Kills is coming out October 15th. I've seen a lot of people saying it doesn't matter that Jason Blum is saying this stuff because he doesn't get to make that call at the end of the day. But yeah, he kind of does have a lot to say in this situation. He's the guy whose production company successfully brought back Halloween after a very long hiatus and made a ton of money doing it. It's not like he's just sitting there with no power over when and how this movie releases. Like, yes, at the end of the day, Universal's the distributor and they get to make the final call, but if you think they're gonna go against Jason Blum, who has provided them with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars over the past decade or so, you're nuts. You're crazy. And then of course, the last big news updates we have today come from the Total Film article, which went way more in depth than I was expecting. The first thing I feel like is worth talking about is that David Gordon Green said in Halloween Kills, Laurie Strode is not the main character, she's the emotional beating heart. And that was really vindicating for me because I know if you guys have been around since Halloween 2018 came out, one of the first things I said after I saw that movie is that Laurie Strode is not like Michael's target in that movie. Michael Myers is just out to kill people wearing his mask on Halloween night, and she is repeatedly putting herself in his path, which is why, again, towards the end of the movie, he has to be taken to her house. He does not give a shit about Laurie. He has no motivation other than killing people. And this is confirmed by the director and the co-writer of the movie. That makes me so happy. Like, if you think about it, Michael Myers is living rent-free in Laurie Strode's head, and that's pretty funny. Another cool thing I noticed is that they're addressing another one of my big complaints, which is how Allison was treated in the movie. Like, she was brought in and they got a great actor to play her. Andy Matichak did an awesome job, but then they didn't really give her a whole lot to do. In Halloween Kills, she's the one who's going to be leading the mob that goes out hunting down Michael Myers. Like, she's finally all in. She totally believes her grandma, who's been saying all this crazy stuff about Michael Myers coming back to kill the people of Haddonfield, and now she's going to step up and just lead the mob because her grandma is hurt, obviously, because she was stabbed in the gut in the first movie. And for me, Allison does have the most emotional energy to bring into this movie. Like, all of her friends were just killed by Michael Myers. Her boyfriend is out there and she's got to protect her mom and her grandma is like the most well-equipped to kill Michael Myers, but she's in a hospital bed. So yeah, I feel like focusing more on Allison in this movie was just the smart move overall. And then one of the most awesome sections of this interview is when David Gordon Green and Danny McBride talk about how they didn't want to give the Shape too much character. They didn't want to give a motivation like he had in Halloween 6 with the Cult of Thorn. When you over-explain Michael Myers, it completely removes the scariness from him. I mean, that's one of the first videos I ever did on this channel, which was when Halloween 2 was announced to be not canon anymore, at least for this timeline. I said, yeah, that makes sense, because when you look at that movie, you introduce the sister plot line, which removes any fear anyone would really have of Michael Myers, right? Because if he's going after Laurie Strode because she's his sister, once he kills her, then there's really nothing to worry about. And also, if you just stay away from Laurie Strode, you're generally going to be fine. Like, Michael Myers has no reason to even kill you, because they're showing that they understand John Carpenter's intent for the character in the first movie. It was to be the absence of character, just a very scary serial killer that could kill anyone on the streets of Haddonfield on Halloween night. And I'm just glad that they're sticking with it, because that's what makes Michael scary to me. And that brings us to the biggest part of this interview, which was when they were talking about Halloween Ends. So yeah, the first thing they confirmed is that they wrote the story for Halloween Kills and the story for Halloween Ends back to back to make sure that they felt like two connected movies that have one larger story. That really backs up what they said about Halloween 2018, which is that they were focusing on making one really good movie that would have a definitive ending, just in case it didn't do well in the box office, but then if it did do well, they could focus on sequels later. So yeah, that's good. They waited until they were successful with a Halloween movie before they worried about sequels, and I'm glad that they had the forethought going into it with Kills to make sure that Ends connects to it well, so it's not just like a complete misfire in the third movie in a trilogy, especially if Halloween Kills is good. That would really suck. The biggest thing they brought up that's really got people talking though is that while they were just sitting there for a year working on Halloween Ends script because they couldn't film it for the past year, they basically decided to move it forward so that it doesn't take place on the same night. They specifically say it's going to take place a few years after Halloween Kills. And they said a few, they didn't give a specific number or anything like that. So if I had to guess, more than 2, less than 5. This really shocked people, and that makes sense because if you have a trilogy where the first 2 movies take place on the same night, you would assume the third movie in that trilogy also would. But when you think about it, the only reason I ever said that I felt like Ends would take place on the same night was because I just assumed it. You know, I had the first movie, which takes place on the same night as the second movie, so why wouldn't the third one take place on the same night as those 2 movies? But then when I sat back and thought about it, I actually think this is a really good idea, because when Halloween Kills picks up, we're already deep into the morning of November 1st. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if when this movie wraps up and the credits roll, there's like a sunrise at the end of it or something like that. It's showing us that Halloween night is over, and then a few years later, Michael Myers is going to show up and surprise everyone on Halloween night once again, and finally, one of them is going to die. It's either going to be Laurie Strode or him dying on the night of Halloween Ends. That's just my prediction there. Knowing how much damage Michael already took in Halloween 2018 and how much he's going to take in Kills because, you know, an entire mob is against him, I feel like giving him a couple years to recharge so he can come back and just murder everyone once again on Halloween night is a good way to go, right? I've seen a few people on Twitter comparing this to a Last Jedi situation, and guys, this isn't even remotely close to something like that. There was no plan going into that entire trilogy. They gave it to multiple filmmakers and said go nuts, and then they moved it around as things would happen. This was given to one filmmaking team to make an entire trilogy. It's got the same writers all the way through. They made a very minor change just to have a timeline shift forward. If you're making a big deal out of this, I feel like it's just for clicks, and honestly, it's not anything worth making a big deal over. And when you look at what we got with Halloween 2018, I feel like David Gordon Green and Danny McBride have earned the right to make a few changes just based on what they think is right. Like, everything we've heard from these guys basically says, yeah, they understand who Michael Myers is. They understand what makes a Halloween movie a Halloween movie. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say, yeah, Halloween Kills looks fucking awesome. And if they want to make a minor change to a timeline for the third movie, which hasn't even shot yet, when they had an entire year to make that change and sit on it and really think whether or not it was going to work, these guys totally deserve to make that change. That's the point I'm making here. And finally, it's just nice to not know what's going to happen in Ends. Like, changing things up from what I assumed is exactly what I want from this filmmaking team, because going into Kills, it kind of sucked just knowing for the past year everything that was going to happen in it. I mean, even before all this stuff started leaking out, going off of 2018, it was very clear what was going to happen in Halloween Kills, because there was only so many ways in which it could go just based on how that movie ended. Anyway guys, that's all the Halloween news I have for you today. Make sure you let me know what you think of all of it down in the comments below, and if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed and set your notifications to all. As always guys, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.